so much for this opportunity to talk to you today. So my name is Monica from Kenya. Way 5 this topic, but I've been living in the Pacific for the last 5 years. In Fiji, I came to the Pacific years ago. I worked for NPC for 2 years, and then I left immediately after COVID. So my introduction, I'm an English specialist, and I've been doing that since I left you. So I'm an economist by training and public policy, but I've also done development. So my role is in research and monitoring and and I'm very passionate about the job. So I hope that we all get passionate like me about M&E after our session today. So pretty much this session is an information session with a lot of feedback from you both. But me trying to set a bit of background on what it is and why it's important for our programs and projects, especially within the development space. In terms of like what you're doing here is not what I normally do on a day-to-day basis, like for learning experience for me, but it's also like I also something when you reached out in the topics. So we have a couple of things we want to do, but as an M&E specialist, we always like to know where we are starting from, like to know the best line, so that can inform how far we can go. So I have a couple of questions that I'd like you to help me in really implementing, and we are just going to begin as we go. So can I request that we all look in? So the first one is in one word. What comes to your mind when you give one to one question? One word. Feel free to type in. If you're familiar with the term, what comes to your mind? Yeah, so if someone saying what comes to mind is confusion. Curious for that person to say why you are speaking, whoever says confusion, you are. That's why it's okay if you don't put the words. Yeah.
It's just something that we're not necessarily used to because we're so focused on, it's a different type of work. So focused on like the day-to-day prosecution that monitoring development is not something that I would get my mind to. The confusion. I'm looking to be enlightened.
Fair. So the accountability planning and effective question. So looking at where you are today, how familiar are you with the very familiar. I'm in for those kinds of doing. But this is not super. So we have a couple of people who are familiar, same number who are somehow familiar, and pretty much the majority. Right. And the question by job involves elements of it means we have the right or pretty much otherwise, yes, and last question, who is responsible for managing the program? I get that. The manipulation is. I think pretty much all of us think it, pretty much all members of the. So let me keep that today. What do you think about that? To talk about it, and what I like us to have a discussion today is pretty much intro on what MNE is, I think. Questions that people who are not familiar, so sort of getting the scene in terms of what do we mean, what's the difference if there is any, and why are they important for. Then we look at the key important part, which is the program logic and the MNE framework, the implementation plan. I think the original guidelines have a program logic, so we have an opportunity to also look at that and have some discussion around what it means. And lastly, at the end of the session, we should go through the implementation plan that has been shared, I think, from our previous session, and the as a segue into fitting in your campus implementation plan. So that's the plan. Let's see how far we can go. So, as a basis of understanding what MNE is, I think it's important to know what is monitoring and what is evaluation. From a specialist point of view, there is a difference, but they are all important elements of a program implementation and management. So, what is monitoring? From this slide, the key element of monitoring of policy of plan is the continuing function, where you collect data of the program to be able to assess progress over time. If you don't do monitoring, then it's very hard to be able to assess whether you're making progress or not. One of the key things to consider with monitoring is it's a continuous function. So from the day you start on designing your project and program, monitoring has to be part of the process. So you do not sit and wait. You have to do it as a continuing function. And that links to a discussion at the beginning, who is responsible for anything. If it is a continuous function, then in a way, everybody who's part of the program is. So the key thing to note is monitoring. That means as a set of a program, you need to think of how am I going to get it? How frequently should I do it? Who is going to collect it? And what information am I looking? What do I want to know in 6 months? What do I want to know in 1 year? What do I want to know? So it's a continuous function, and if you're doing it at design, it's important to know that you need to have the team in place and even people to be able to ensure that you're doing it well. Please feel free to ask me a question during the session. It's totally fine. Then what is evaluation? So evaluation, like MNE, is also a key component of the program, but evaluation is a systematic and objective assessments to be able to assess whether the project program is achieving the intended result. So evaluation in comparison to monitoring is to be able to assess whether you are achieving the intended result. Meaning, at the beginning of any project or program, you need to know what objectives you want to achieve. We all have programs and processes. So for this regional guideline, I'm sure you have key objectives you want to achieve as a result. Okay. So with evaluation, it's make at some point in time, hold and be able to assess, are we achieving the result? Are we bringing in the change that we want? So the difference between evaluation and monitoring is ongoing, it's a certain point in time. So you need to decide when do we need to do it. Mostly people do it after 1 year, 2 years. You hear about midterm evaluation, midterm review. So when you are implementing a 5-year program, 2.5 years down the line, you've got it. So this one goes in depth, not just looking at are we doing the activities that we agreed to do, but also are our activities achieving the implementation. So then evaluation is much more deeper, mostly done by could be internal or external people, and they take a lot of time to be able to assess. So evaluation is asking the big picture question, are we achieving the result that we want? While monitoring is, are we doing what we plan to do this year, our activity on track? So evaluation can also be done at the end of the program, project evaluation, or where after the program has finished. I've seen situations where after 5 years, you want to assess the impact. So monitoring also has to be done within the life of the project. Evaluation can also happen way after project has concluded. Any question? Yes, please. You can do evaluation as at the beginning, and that's already called a baseline. You want to assess what is the stage of this program or what's the state of this issue before we start a program. So within the evaluation M&E language, you can do it. But it's also now you are trying to test the water where things are always called the baseline step, or people call it a formative step. You are doing the same thing, but you want to explain the stuff. So you can have a baseline, you can have a midterm review, midway through the program, and you can have an end of program evaluation, and also an impact evaluation many years after you put it. But any question? Yeah. So quickly then, what are the difference between monitoring and evaluation? As I mentioned, frequently monitoring is continuous, evaluation. So if you are doing it at the beginning of your program, like you have asked for baseline or ex-ante evaluation, you can do it midway through the project, and you can also do it end of project or ex-post prior to the project. In terms of the focus, monitoring is obviously focusing on activities. So what it is that we plan to do, are we doing it? So for instance, this year we have a work plan. Monitoring is saying, are we doing whatever is it? So the evaluation is looking at cost and effect, results and change. Is our project going to change? So in terms of the type of activities, just whatever you plan for the year, over for the 6 months, but evaluation, you're asking yourself why. Why are we not making? Are we achieving what we plan to achieve? Is what we are achieving what we wanted to achieve? Or sometimes we can implement something and it can be an intended outcome. Why is that? Okay. Yeah, so pretty much following up on that. Why is monitoring important? As a program manager, I want to know whether you're able to say tick, tick, tick. And if you're providing a progress update, you're like on track, off track, partially on track. And for evaluation, it's important for program managers or even for donors to make decisions about the strategy and the program. And in some instances, actually whether the program should continue. So then you have to do an evaluation as to kind of. So in terms of who does monitoring and evaluation, mostly monitoring is done by people who are part of the program. It's rare to get an internal company. But for evaluation, it can be done by people within the team, or you can get an external company to come in. I'm sure you've been part of discussions where someone wants to ask you about, like, wants to ask you about some questions about a program. So the key difference there, monitoring is internal. Evaluation sometimes can be internal, can be external. Evaluation can be commissioned by the program, can be commissioned by the donor, especially if they have questions about program. Any questions? All right. Then why do we have to do MNE? In the MNE one, we always say we do MNE for two main functions: accountability and quality. So most of the development programs are funded by somebody. And it's always important that we have and in some of these countries, Australia, the US, whatever, the people who are major, they also use public, so they are also accounted for. Yeah. So as program implementers, they are also accountable to that. And one of the ways to be accountable is to actually monitor and say, you gave us 1 million, say we are going to do this, we've been able to do that. So accountability as a function of MNE is very important, not just for the donor, but also for the program manager or as an implementer. Am I doing the right thing? Are we doing what we say we are going to do? Are we doing the right activities? So you're also accountable to your team and the program. The other element of MNE is learning. So the key other function of why you need to monitor and evaluate is support learning. Like I mentioned, every program has objectives. So you want to know what is our project. So what we intended to do working. If it's working, where is it working? And for who? And what does it tell about your program? So for instance, like there is no a document or program. There are some things that we can see context matter. So there's something that we work in Fiji that completely not work in PNG or So the element of learning is doing what we're doing here, is bringing people together and saying, how is this working? How is it working in your context rather? And why? And sometimes why are things not working? So then you're able to get the reason and be able to make course correction as important. So foundational, that's MNE, why it's important. So when it comes to MNE, it's meaning that there are different components to a good MNE. So there are key things in an ideal situation, and I mark the word ideal, that needs to be part of your MNE. But we don't live in one ideal situation. So sometimes because of risk, something might. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by looking at what are some of the key elements in an ideal world. If you have enough money and everything that you need to have your MNE, and then we look at some of the key things to focus on. So when it comes to a good system, there are a couple of things you need to consider. So one, it is always a foundational field, what we call a program logic. We are going to talk about that shortly. It's something that you need to develop at the beginning of a program. It helps you think through the program as a whole, but it doesn't start from you saying what activity do I need to do. You start from thinking, what is the change or the result that I want to achieve? Then you work your way backwards to be able to see then what are the activities that I need. So the result that you want to achieve becomes your main focus, and the activity to just the way. The other thing which is also taught in program logic, and sometimes people use it interchangeably, is the theory of change. So the theory of change is more or less like a program logic, but it positions your program within a broader context. So for instance, if you're doing a project, developing a project for Fiji, you are not only focusing on your program, but you're also looking at other external factors that affect your program or assumptions that you make, and then what you need to do to be able to do that. That's the difference. The other element of good M&E is that some people call it an M&E framework, or a results framework, some people call it a logic. So this is a document that after you have your program logic, you develop it to be able to give you outcomes and indicators to be able to measure. Now it's a bit more detailed, but it also draws from the program logic. The other part is M&E or implementation plan. So sort of operational, like am I going to report, or am I going to function, what should I do monitoring, do I need to do any evaluation? But the other key component of M&E. The other part is reflection and learning agenda. These have been getting popular in current times. So one of the things is you also want to plan for learning. We always assume that learning happens, but sometimes if you don't plan for that, it really has to be able to connect the evidence with the learning impact. So nowadays, I think you're also getting people saying monitoring and evaluation and learning. So for me, I always have my monitoring and learning session because learning is a key component of it. So you also need to plan for that. And we have spoken to evaluation. Do we need evaluation? And if we do, when are we going to do that? So this is an ideal architecture of a good M&E. Ideally, they say that there's money, there's people, there's resources. We have everything to go. But I also know that we do not live in an ideal world. Sometimes some of these things might follow. But it doesn't mean your M&E system is not. If you just have to make a case on what it is that I want to focus on and not get overwhelmed that you do not have everything. Especially if, like you mentioned, with it's music, because most of the time programs don't have many specialists, and your program manager, your job is to actually do the implements. So there's very little time and resources to do evaluation. So then that becomes, what do I need? What are the key things that I need? And not to be overwhelmed that I don't have everything. So this would also work when the program has an administrator. And sometimes even if they have an specialist full time, that doesn't get hard because it takes a lot of time. But as a basis, those are some of the things to consider as a foundation. Any questions? No? Are we doing good? Is this too confusing? Right? So then for today's purpose, I want to focus on this. Someone has to let me know. For today's purpose, I want us to focus on this. Logic, the result framework, M&E framework, and the implementation. So we'll go very quickly here. When it comes to a program logic, we always have words. It's so many words, so many terms. What do they mean? And it's a sector and it various have a lot of words. And some of this they mean actually the same thing. It's just when it comes to a program of theory of technology, there's a lot of things that we need to consider. But we also know we play with a lot of words. So for instance, in this case, outcome objective sometimes means the same thing. It's just what different donors call. For instance, development with the outcome, the USAID report. But we are actually just talking about what are the results of the program. So in summary, this shouldn't overwhelm you. It's just a month. You just need to know what it is. So theory of change program logic, very quickly, I've talked about this. It is a narrative on the change that your project or program wants to achieve and how you're going to get. It is a basic foundation for any program. If for anything, if you do not have anything else in your mouth to have, ideally it should be at the beginning of a program or when you're designing it, but also you can build it anytime. So you have to think of what are the what you want to achieve. For instance, if I take this training as our, what is it? What is the key results we want to achieve? What is the change that we want to achieve? Then we start from there. We want to use this knowledge and understanding of applying the regional guidelines. So if we want to enhance, increase knowledge and understanding of the guidelines, what are some of the things we need to do? So you are starting from the bigger picture, the result that you want to see, and working yourselves back to be able to ensure that the activity that you need to do that. So that was achieved because in the past, people started to used to study the activities and somehow let's find our way out. Meaning that sometimes activities were run, they were not coherent, they think all over the place. Then the lineup. So, like I said at the beginning, some people use these two terms interchangeably. DFAT uses program logic. The theory of change is broad, looking at the context. Program logic is just specific. What is the change? For instance, for the regional guidelines, what are the activities? What are the short-term outcomes? What do we want? What quick change do we want in 6 months? In 12 months? So why is a program logic important about it? You are able to pick up the result that help you think of what are some of the assumptions you make, what are some of the risks that you need, what are the risks, then you are able to find it. So it's a very good foundational tool. If you do not have it, 2 years, 3 years after the program, you can start anytime for which will help you focus your areas. It's also important because it also helps you see how much MA is supposed to use for monitoring. So for the regional guideline, there is a problem. How many of us have seen that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So how many of us were part of developing that? They're going to share the copies, the hard copies of the program logic. But this is the program logic that I'm talking about for the regional guide. So on first instance, when you look at this, what do you see? Steps. Steps 4. Steps of implementation. What else do we see? Sorry. What do we see? What do we see? The outcomes. And we have short-term, medium-term, and they are sort of segmented. What else do we see? What do we plan? Oh. Let's see if it's inspiring of our it's scary. It is a lot of work to be done. So looking at the topic we talked about, this logic diagram is a logical flow on how we see changes in the regional guideline function. So we have on our extreme right, we have the long-term changes or result that we want to see. And then we have what we want to see immediately, 2 years. We have short term, 6 to 12 months. And then on the side, we are seeing activities. So this is a logical flow of activities, And when they were designing this, I would assume they started from what is the change that we want to see and work themselves to the left. So the activities that are here are informed by the changes that we want to see. So a couple of things on the extreme left is inputs and activities. These are the things that we need. For inputs, most of the time is what do you need to run, have this program running. Most of the time is you need this, you need finance, you need the money, you need the office, you need everything else. The tangible stuff that you need to have to be able to do your activity. Activities are the tangible things that you do on a day-to-day basis as contribution to the overall. So for you to achieve a result, you have to do either one, the activities to achieve that. So activities in this sense have to be done. If we have to get any change, we have to do something. So activities cannot be gray. They have to be done and they have to be done. At least that's the best. So activities and out in this sense, these are must have. These are what we need to actually, and blankly is what we are getting funding to do most of the activities. So then the outcomes and benefits is what we aim to achieve. Meaning some of them can be achieved, some of them can fail. Because of many things, we implement programs in different contexts. And sometimes what you aim to achieve just doesn't happen. It doesn't mean the program is bad. You just need to ask why. Why did that not happen? So at the minimum, activities are there, and this leads to our next session of the implementation plan. We have to think of the activities that we need to do as a contribution towards the long term. Is there any question? It's overwhelming, but it's just a logical flow on what we have, inputs and resources, what activities that we must do because usually that's what we need to do. And then what are some of the changes that we want to see? And this is very nice because we have what we expect to see in 3 years, what we expect to see 2+ years, so long. So before we go into some discussion around the program logic, when it comes to program logic and how to implement it, we have to understand what we call a sphere of control framework. So a sphere of control framework is a framework that mentions that it's important to understand a program within a broader context. Within a program, there are some things that you are responsible for, that you have control of. So within our project or a program, those are some of them. So the sphere of control looks at a program through things that you have control over, things that you have influence over, and things that you have interest. So if I go back to this, within our program logic, and activities and outputs is within the sphere of control. It means we can control it. We have the money, the risk, we can control it. So within a sphere of control, all those things are in our hands. Then because we can control. You can control how many activities. You can control how many trainings you want to deliver. You can control how many within a sphere of control. When it comes to short term to medium term, is what is called the sphere of influence. You can influence, but you are not responsible. So in this case, we can have all our activities. We can influence the short term to medium term changes, but we are not responsible because projects and programs happen within a broader context. There is politics, there's everything else, and sometimes what you plan to, it just doesn't happen. You can have all the activities. So you have influence in terms of shaping that, but you're not in control. And then the long-term outcome or impact is sphere of interest. We have interest in that. We hope that it actually gets to be that. We have no control, and sometimes very limited influence. So then when it comes to that, when you think of it in the broader sphere of control framework, it helps you focus your efforts very well. Where you have control, you have influence. Where you have influence, you have to look at what are some of the ways that I can. And obviously, where you have interest, you can also work towards that. When it comes to a program budget, it's important to apply the sphere of control framework, knowing that you can only control inputs to activities, but you can immensely influence short-term and medium-term outcomes. And for long-term outcomes, we have interests, and countries can have. So that's a very good training when you're trying to start the activities and also putting up an M&A. What can you control? Meaning you will be responsible for it. And that is your activity. What can you influence? That's the short term. And if you're talking to an M&A person, they'll ask, so what? You did the training, so what happened? Right? We had this workshop. Then we want to see something beyond training. That's something beyond what? We want to see something beyond a campaign. So that's short term. So you have options to review. All right. Any questions that feel comfortable? Any questions? Can I proceed? Yeah. So we come back to this. For those who are saying this for the first time, if you focus on the activities and short-term outcomes, I'll focus on just for do we have any thoughts around the key activities within the program logic? Do we think it's something that can be achieved in 6 months? Are we being ambitious? Do we need to scale down, or do we need to be even more ambitious? I'm going to give you 5 minutes on your table. Let's have a discussion around that, or maybe 3 minutes. Have a look at program logic, the regional guidance. Look at the short term 6 to 12 months. And just any thoughts on what you think, whether the short-term outcomes are achievable, ambitious, what activities are missing, anything else that you need to include, just a just so going to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. So just looking at this, so I do agree with the short term. There'll be ample time to actually get this done. By looking at the medium term, with more training on vulnerable witnesses, more training on that, I would say that I think that should be ongoing 2+ years because I think I'm saying for small jurisdiction where I'm from, it doesn't take 2 years for it to grasp the training. So I would say that would be a continuous thing. So yeah, thank you.
Is that all?
So we're just within our jurisdiction in Samoa, we just looking at the short term, 6 to 12 months, we might need another year. Just to implement the whole. This whole,
You think you need more time?
yeah.
And the activities in the main activity.
For us, back in Vanuatu, we think that, yeah, for maybe, bit more time as well, perhaps maybe another year as well, like my other colleague, 6 to 12 months, maybe not enough time yet, and maybe only 1 or 2 months. Um, so, yes, and then, medium term to long term, I think that's, yeah, that's enough. Okay. Yeah.
For now, Master is very optimistic. We say we can do it. We like not to duplicate avenues of assistance that we already have on the ground. If we can avoid creating too many positions, which we know will not be realistic for a small government like now, we try and utilize what's available and use them in the process that will allow us to arrive at the 6 month to 4 month timeline. So if we can do that, I think it'll be more, just a lot more realistic. But Masters come in with a lot of hope and these forces about maybe help us implement this.
Definitely, think of how to implement the guidelines in the current.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts from?
Because we have support officers that don't sit within our offices. They sit outside the Ministry of Women. So that we can utilize them in our space, then we're not creating another position. And you know what it's like in small island governments to create a position means money. And so to try and avoid that, we'll try and use what's available on the ground and make it more adaptive to now's context.
And within that, that you think 6 months everything and the hope that we have that it can be.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic in terms of, I know it can be done, done it before. We implemented guidelines to children, and so we have somewhere to work off. And again, these regional guidelines, very clear. I'm very optimistic because my brother is the police force and my sister from, FWCC, like the other agencies. With what we've done before, and I think we can do it again. So I'm optimistic to report back short term that will be good.
We already have a lot of things. So I would say the training of police officers and our other stakeholders will come in to the short term and continue.
I think just to add on with medium term, in relation to training as well, that 2 years, like for us, money and resources is one of the problem, to do implementation, to run trainings. Because we have other provinces where police statements also there. So like for 2 years, we might need more than that, depending on the resources we have and money when it's happening. Okay, for PNG, the short term and medium term
outcomes or benefits and believe are achievable because we have in practice conducted every year. And as we have new prosecutors joining the office, they automatically go into the training list of participants. So the training we do both in-house to continue legal education, CLE programs, and the ones where our intergovernment partnerships to provide sponsorship or donor funding, they help us to facilitate our trainings at our industry, where we bring in the prosecutors from our outside provinces, as well as medical officials and social workers, we include them. So for example, one of the trainings we do is the medical evidence workshop and the child witness workshop, which is hosted, facilitated by the OPP. And we thought short term and medium term, we can achieve this for the long term. Sometimes we have to seek funding from within the office, but with the intergovernment partnership in place, it depends on the contract that they have with the government or our office, for how long and how long they will be available to provide the support to us. So I think all of this is achievable.
Thank you. First, in summer, I'm happy with the proposed time frame and the key activities. No, I'm comfortable because PILON is already clear for what kind of, especially for training embedded. Thank you.
I'm very optimistic. Under the section of activities, I also would like a section added there that we need buy-in with our people at home and also the teaching, whereby we can have not only this activity to introduce our guidelines, but also some activities to promote the guidelines so that we get support from our national leaders and then also donors to see that we're also doing some work in the space and would like to include it in some of their work.
So that's like sort of mechanism to get buy-in from technical policymakers. Sort of having activities around stakeholder engagements and buy. Okay. All right. If you have any further thoughts, obviously when you go back at what we can send you comments to the. So looking at time, one of the key things I just wanted to talk very briefly is around indicators. So it's good to know the change that you want to achieve. The big question becomes, how do you measure? All right, so we all want to know that we want to see that there's increased knowledge and understanding of the guidance. How do we measure? So indicators is one of the ways that we use measure. It's not part of this. This is the result that you want to have, we hope to achieve. The other question is, how do we measure that? And indicators help us. So very quickly, what are indicators? Indicators help us measure again the changes or conditions that we want to achieve or clear. So if you look at the short-term outcome, if I go back, if you look at the program logic for the regional guidelines, we have short-term outcomes, medium-term, and long-term. Those are the changes that we want. But indicators are the thing that helps us to measure. So we want to know that there is increased understanding in the region. What are some of the indicators that we use? So indicators, the good thing, we won't go into a lot of detail, but it helps us measure the change. So it's not one thing to know it. If you come to me and you're like, That's how I spend my time, and that's where we do the indicators. So indicator is help us to measure the result of change the advantage. If you have an outcome, what you need to have besides that indicator. Okay. The other thing to consider is targets. So within a program, when you start from somewhere and then you are aiming. So targets then become at that level of achievement that you want your project activity or program. So target is what you aim to achieve. So if you're starting a 5-year program, your target is what you want to achieve in 5 years' time. So for instance, if you want to do a training to increase knowledge and understanding of sexual and gender violence, for instance, your target in 5 years is want to train 1,000. So 1,000 then become. So it's what you aim to achieve. When you're setting a target, consider two things. It is aspirational, you aim to achieve, and it should be quantifiable measures. So it's what you aim. When you are developing your targets, it's good to dream, because that's what you want. But you have to dream within in the real world. But it's manageable, what can be achieved within that time. So when you have a target, it's good to also think of your program period. You cannot achieve something in a year, but you can achieve, like, what can you achieve in a year? So targets have to be also framed within the timeline. If it's at 10 years, you can give yourself time. So a year you have to think and maybe scale down the. And this one we talked at the beginning is a baseline. So a baseline is the value of an indicator before the start of the project implementation. So let's say we are doing the regional guidelines for 2024. 2024 is our baseline. So if we want to increase the knowledge and understanding of people, we have to ask ourselves what's the baseline. If our baseline is 100, and you want to move it to 1,000 by 5 years, it means from now to 5 years, you need to have 900. So baseline is you assessing where I'm at. It is very hard, so sometimes it's very hard to collect information. And that's the whole session. But our baseline is always good. So for this training, when I came in and we had those questions, I'm setting the baseline. I wanted to see how familiar are you with them? Then that can inform how I teach. So if you're assessing where you're starting, target is this is where I want to go. An indicator is this is how I will measure. Easy. Couple of things to consider. I'm going to digital indicators by themselves have certain characteristics. So they have values. It has to be measuring the actual thing. So if you want to change to understand knowledge, you cannot measure health. So it has to be valid in relation to the thematic problem. So you cannot measure health. It has to be reliable in a sense that if you use the indicator in different situations by different people, it should give you the same result. It's affordable. You have to be sure that you can actually collect that information with very minimal risks. Don't go ambitious and you need $1 million to collect that. It has to be simple, so anyone should be able to understand it, whether they're administration. It has to be measurable. It's an indicator that has to be measurable. It's kind of not is an indicator. So it has to be measured and precise. That's very quickly. What are some of the common pitfalls with indicator selection? People just do many indicators. You think the more indicators you have, the better your medicine. The more indicators you have, the more work for yourself. Whatever. So keep it simple. Poorly defined indicators that are not measurable, or indicators that actually do not measure what you're looking at. And indicators that are such so they're not. And like I said, just maybe I don't know. Because just too much work and most of the time you know. So when you are in a program or how much is enough? This is just my thoughts based on my experience. Always aim for at least 1 or 2 indicators per outcome. One quantitative, one qualitative. Get the number, but also get the result behind. So if you have at least like one key indicator for each key program of the master. I think with this, the key thing is just and ensuring you're making strategic choices on what is the indicator to tell us. We can measure what is it that we should be able to help us measure. I'm moving very fast because but before we do any question on indicators, I do this in our week of that in 10 minutes early. So we need to go into detail. But these are some of the things to consider right. Any questions? Any experience? So the last thing that I want to is that the implementation. Having that, you might have a good system in place, but that system has to be put into work. So you have to operationalize that. And you have to think of how am I going to actually do this? Who is responsible for this? What resources do I need? And that's where the implementation plan comes. So it's like operationalizing everything that you plan in your program. Because our program logic, once it's done and revised, you have to do the work. The results pretty much can only measure change once you've implemented some activity. So you also practice it. But an implementation plan is like that. Right? This is how we are going to do. These are the key main activities for this outcome. This is what we need. These are the resources that we need. Actually, I'll go in and say who is going to do it and even put an end to it. Because unless you're very specific to that level, some of these things don't happen. Just because you plan for it doesn't mean that it happens. So the implementation plan is sitting through with your team, with yourself or whoever, and really thinking through this is the outcomes. These are the key. This is what I need to do. This is where I need to do much. What I need to do. Because some activities have to happen for others and build on. So it involves really thinking and structuring the flow of your activities, but also looking at we have resources for the yes, that is good. There's money, so money. So there is money. Then the issue becomes who is going to do this? Because remember, all of you, I think, you're actually doing the work, you're implementing the program. Then the question becomes. So 6 months down the line, and PILON comes and they want to see a progress report. This thing. Is it you? Someone on your team. You need to get someone to do it. So the implementation plan is thinking through that. And you need to really think the whole thing. Activities, how do I structure them? What comes first? Who is going to do it? And also look at your country and context. What else is happening? Because there are so many things happening and you want people to come into your team when you do that. So that's the implementation plan comes from. Thinking really through about that, and I like putting a name to things because it just a lot of so if you are able to even go to that level of saying we're going to be putting an name or putting our condition to it, that helps in follow up and monitor. Okay. So there is an implementation plan. I've just put the guideline. And I think I spoke to Kailan of the session in the morning. They sort of have that after they start to do the implementation of the guideline. So this is just a pleasant house. And it has some couple of columns and certain information. So like the way we saw their goals, the open goals, in fact, goals that we want to achieve. So the action is how what we want to complete. This would be activities in the what is called something, but there are things that we have to do. Who is responsible to do that activity? within the context of the things to do that. Like I said, you can put a over a bunch, but for very specific like me, want a name. I'm always like, give me a name. Because I know I need to follow up into a group. We can do that, not to consider a position. And when nothing actually complete within your concept, but also think the bigger program logic, right? Because after 6 months, you might need a report. So you also have to structure it within that and how much is it works. When it comes to resources, you need a cost, it could be money, it could be resources or whatever can get whatever. So think of the resources you need, and then the money, that's the time. If you're able to quantify, that helps. You can say $1,000 a million. So these are the key components, and this is where things get very specific in terms of doing this. So I think have another session that we are going to do that, but I wanted us to take us through this and linking into the program logic and also helping us think what are some of the things. Yeah, so this is it. This is where it gets real. This is actually now the real program. Because remember, okay. Any question on this? Easy stuff, right? easy. I like the way you say this, my right. Yeah. So I think as I come to an end, as I wrap up, not just program, but for your future work, for your future program, when you're thinking about the thing, why do you have to look at it? What do I have in my control? What can I do? And also, what can my project do? What can it control? Most of the time, we cannot claim all the outcomes for ourselves because we are not the only ones. So think of your influence, what can you control? Focus your efforts, and then look for avenues to influence. Like the way she said, buying and thinking to the stakeholders. M&A resourcing is important. If you have a good M&A system, everything your objectives are framework, unless someone carries out, it really gets done. So think M&A, think reporting obligation, who is going to do that? Do I have money for? Who is active? And remember, the more things you give for yourself, more indicators, the more time you will spend. So think M&A resources and see who can. Also be able to understand within a development what are the development or a minor that helps. And I think we'll have a discussion of the next. Think of how you can equal. We do all this for policies. I'm planning with your program. Think of what is it that I can get in my program, and when should I have it ready? With policy makers, that I give you the number. Tell me what's like. So if you want to do that focus as well, you have to really do the time. If it's about budgeting, you want to really. Because at the end of the day, you need to get policy to be able to make change because most of it happens. Yeah, and always think about data. When can I get it? So you put your activity together and you have to put it think, how am I going to play some of it? So if it's about people training, people who are coming to the workshop, how are you going to play? So those are some of the things you can be done now. The picture we are setting up. Yeah, okay. There'll be a discussion about this. I don't need to do this now, I guess. But there's going to be some work coming up. And something. But I think Where I am, but I understand some of it. I think they can discuss it. But, there's gonna be a webinar. In 6 months, there will be going to be before inside. And it's very, a lot of people. I think we are all to each other in ways that is achievable. We can do it in our context. Each time they have money. It's waiting for the report, like. Month from now, and by the time it's because everyone knows yeah, I think there's gonna be an online. We can provide more details on that. But this is what some of the key things to think about, even as we do in the afternoon. The implementation plan for it. And that brings me to that.